All right, back at another edition. It is beginning of the week. Try and upload this ready for Wednesday, Tuesday night. Plenty of sports, lots happening. NCAA championship just took place on Monday night in Houston. You had the Conn Huskies going up against the San Diego Aztecs. Championship game. UConn was probably favorited. And they did exactly what they were expected to do. Great turnout. Lots of people there. UConn was dominating quite a bit. They had outscored their opponents by 10 points at least in all of their games. And this kind of, to me, just sounds more like a team that knows what they need to do, a system that's been tested, and also just not even having a competition almost. Like, people could probably say that this is one of the most dominant college sports, basketball teams rather, that's been assembled. And that's pretty cool for them to be as dominant as they have been. And also, I was hearing that yesterday was probably one of the closest matchups, and it didn't even seem that way to me. Of course it should be, and I think that there probably should be some sort of equal competition, especially in the final game. These are the final two teams. But at the same time, I don't think that there is really anything that they needed to fix. I think that University of Connecticut, they had their plan, they had their idea. It had been almost just a matter of systemic progression that had led them to this point. Everybody knew their role. Everybody was executing properly. I think also it benefited them by it being in a best of one, win or go home, not best of seven. There isn't a series. You can't get comfortable. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's exactly what we saw. And San Diego State was probably, I don't know what the boys were up to, but maybe it wasn't exactly what UConn was up to with the time that they had. That kind of thing also comes into play. UConn sticking to what they know, sticking to what they're good at. UConn had a lot of chances as well. Sonogo and Klein, they were grabbing the boards. They were grabbing everything, it seemed like. Offensive rebounds, layups, they had their fair share of offensive ability, being the centers. And they made it very difficult for San Diego to even get in deep or to get their shots, to get what they wanted to do. It seemed like they were stuck on the perimeter and they weren't able to get in by any means. They weren't able to get probably the shots that they would have wanted if they were playing like a regular game. To me, it looked like they were hesitating a lot. They were not getting the shots that they wanted. They were being indecisive. They were passing too much. They were spending more of their time at the perimeter, and that kind of stuff just didn't always... you can't always rely on that, especially if they're three-point shots. I mean, stuff like that is just... It's super feast or famine, especially if you're not the best three-point shooting team. Maybe you get an excuse that way, but to me, it looked like none of the shots that San Diego was putting up, none of their threes were going in, but that was the exact antithesis from UConn's point of view. It looked like all their shots were going in. They were taking difficult ones as well. But it's very, very impressive that they were not knocking down these impossible shots, it seemed like. But hey, congrats to UConn. Clearly, you were the better team. When San Diego cut the lead down to 5 points, it was kind of a joke. Me and my brother, we were joking about it because we were watching the game, and it looked like there was a 12-point lead at halftime. And we were trying to think if San Diego State was gonna make some noise and actually maybe change the trajectory a little bit. Like they were saying at the halftime show, just cut away at that lead, just break into it a little bit, get it down to single digits, and then they get it down to single digits. And then what does UConn do? They just storm right back. As soon as the lead was cut down, I believe it was 55-50. UConn just went right back at them, and they just in a blink of an eye, it was a 12-point lead again. And that was the kind of the strength that the Huskies had, that they were going with. It was just amazing. I was just like, man, they were stepping on their throats. They weren't giving them anything. They were giving them nothing. So congratulations to University of Connecticut, their 5th championship in school history, really making an example out of every team that they played by beating them by 10 points at least. And just another victim was San Diego State. And it looks like it could have been any of those other Florida teams that to come out of the Final Four. It didn't really matter. UConn was rolling over them. So that is a huge conclusion. That is the adjudication of March Madness. Boom. But in the meantime, we have the Toronto Blue Jays because it's April. March Madness has wrapped itself up. We're almost a week into Blue Jays season. So beginning it was on Thursday. They started their game against St. Louis, their series. It seemed to go on forever. This first series that every team had. I was just like, wow, the Blue Jays are still playing the Cardinals. I don't know if you can even consider that 10-9 victory on opening day a victory because it just looked so awful from every aspect. And I touched on this in my last video because I wanted to react to the Blue Jays as soon as I could. I was very much looking forward to the beginning of the season. So yeah, they played pretty badly, and not just in the one game. Their poor performances spread out. Yeah, there was no shortage. There was the blown leads were ubiquitous. They were so ubiquitous, in fact, that I forgot that it was 3 out of 4 games. Not to mention the performances that seemed to be around in the first game, but then we go over to the next few games, and there was a huge drop off in production. It's almost like this the first game against Kansas City on Monday, this spread over to. They just kept it in Missouri. It's like there's something in Missouri that the Blue Jays are allergic to, like defense. So George Springer went 5 for 6 in the first game, and since he has gone 1 for 19. Not to mention he had like 4 runs. Everyone was losing their mind. I mean, I tuned into that game, the first game, when the Blue Jays were up 3-0, and I was like, all right, this is a great start to the year. What could go wrong? Sure, they won the game, and then they won again today against Kansas City on Tuesday. I mean, I know that they'll bounce back, but let's get a string of wins together here, We can't. There's not really a whole lot that we can judge from one game. Like, this is way too soon. But I don't know about that outfield. The options. One good thing about the Blue Jays is that they got a lot of options. They got so many different possibilities for their lineup. The outfield, other than having Springer, Varsho, and Kiermaier, I don't know what I like. I don't know what else there is that I like in there. It's like, I mean, Merrifield's been playing outfield. He's been playing left and right, and he was playing right on Tuesday. To me, I think he should probably just play second. Speaking of Kansas City, play the position that you've been playing for a while. And also Alejandro Kirk, I don't know if he's going to be consistent like he was last year. Obviously, it's too early to tell, and that's what I like about this. But at the same time, I mean, the guy is not doing anything that he had been doing. It's almost like droughts like this where your stars aren't getting anything done. And you have Varsho getting a home run on Tuesday, the first of the season. Meanwhile, you have guys who have 3-4. Brian Reynolds has 4 home runs already, and the Blue Jays have 1 as a team combined. So that's discouraging. The offensive production, you're seeing huge names off the board in the first round fantasy drafts, but no production is going on. Of course, that doesn't transcend over to real life, but it is indicative of how the team is playing and what the stars are up to. That's the point. I'm happy for each win. There's obviously a lot of tweaking that's going to be done, especially in the bullpen. It's just been a rough few days, for pitching as well. That is the biggest thing. It's not going to last forever. We're seeing bounce backs. It's been a wacky start to the year. For real. It's been wacky. But that's on my mind a lot. A lot of the attention is there, and playoffs for the NBA and NHL, pardon me, start soon. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm just not too interested in that, but baseball is around, and it's what I want to be paying attention to the most, and I think it's well deserved to have my attention right now. Even though the stakes aren't very high, to me they're not that high. until the playoffs start in those other leagues. But I mean, April's a great time of year. It really is for sports. It's exciting stuff for sure.